Lindsay Patrick Wright. We're going to take it back to the beginning of this cooking series and we're going to revisit eggs. This time we're going to make them fancy. We are going to be using our Instant Pot. However, we need our blender first. What we're going to be making today are mock sous vide egg bites. Now, obviously we're using our Instant Pot, so we aren't sous videing the egg bites. Sous videing is a cooking process in which water gets up to a certain temperature and you place whatever you're cooking into it and the water circulates around it, cooking whatever it is. So we're still going to be pressure cooking these, but they end up having the same consistency as an egg bite that's sous vide. So if you're kind of wondering, like, I've never even heard of sous vide egg bites, well, then you probably don't visit a very popular coffee chain. But these egg bites are perfect for meal prep. It's what we use them for here. So again, we're going to be using some like more fancy things than we usually do in these videos, but I promise the end result is worth it. So what do you need? You're going to need a blender. You're going to need your Instant Pot. You will actually use your trivet. We don't often use that in the Instant Pot. Usually I use fancier stuff, but we're just going to use the old-fashioned trivet. And for these, you will need these silicone molds. So you can get these at pretty much any, home store, or you can order them online. But they're very handy. But you really can only just use them for this, maybe Jello if you want to make weird little Jello molds. So you'll need these. I have 2 of them because I'm doubling the recipe. Because again, I'm using this for meal prep. Ingredients, oh, and you'll need some parchment paper, and I'll explain that later once we get into it. What you'll need ingredient-wise is eggs, obviously, and a lot of them. Again, I'm using a doubled recipe of this specific recipe because I'm making this for meal prep for breakfasts for my family of 3. And these will last just that long. So I've already cracked my eggs into the blender. There's 10 eggs in here. I think that that's going to be plenty for what we need. You're going to need cheese. I have one of the like 3 cheese Mexican blends, but you can use cheddar, sharp cheddar, any cheese you want. I also have bacon. This is pre-cooked and crumbled up into small bits. I've got a little milk. I've got salt, pepper, olive oil spray, and some garlic and onion powder. And then we'll need a cup of water once we get to the Instant Pot part of this. So we're going to start with the base of the egg bite. And the reason for that is because after that point, it's really customizable. So like I said, I've already got my eggs cracked in the blender. And we're just going to dump all of the base ingredients in there. So I'm going to pour the milk in, trying not to make a mess. I'm going to pour the cheese in. Now I'm not going to put the bacon, or I also have some spinach and mushroom, but we'll talk about that later. I am going to put in the seasoning. I'm going to put a little salt and pepper. So it's got cheese and it will have bacon in it. So go light on the salt because you don't want these to be over salty. And then I'm cracking some pepper in there. So that's all you need for the base. Now we're going to make sure that we put our lid on. And then we're just going to blend it up. All right, so we're going to start small. Okay, so we started off just kind of pulsed, made sure that cheese was nice and broken up in there. And now we're going to amp it up a little bit. And the reason we're doing that is this is what's going to give those egg bites that real fluffy texture to it. I think I got it. Now you do want to be careful because blenders like this, especially these really high power blenders, can cook the eggs and you're not ready for that. But when you see that you've got some foamy bubbles at the top, of your mixture, then you know that it's just right. And we're ready to move on to the assembly part. All right, we're ready to begin our assembly. So once we've assembled it, we're going to put it right into the Instant Pot. So we want to do this step so that we don't forget. So I'm going to pour a cup of water into the bottom of the Instant Pot, and I'm not going to put the trivet in yet. So we've got the water in, and what I have done is I have sprayed the silicone molds with some olive oil. You can do any nonstick spray, but I like the taste of olive oil, so that's what we're using, because these usually do pop out pretty easily, but this adds a little bit of flavor and it helps make sure that they do pop out. So what you want to do now is you want to add any of the ingredients that you're going to put into the base. So right now we've got eggs, we've got cheese, we've got a little milk in our base. But if you want to put anything else, let's say red peppers, maybe some feta cheese, then you're going to put it into a little bit into the bottom of the mold. And then we're going to pour the base on top. So everyone in my family likes bacon. So we're going to put a little bit of bacon in the bottom of all of these. All right, so you'll see that my molds now have a little bit of bacon at the bottom. And you might be wondering, like, isn't it all just going to be like right there at the top and weird once we pop these out? And the answer is a little bit. But when we pour the base into it, some of that bacon's going to kind of float up into the base. Now, here's the beauty of these egg bites is you can customize them. So again, you can add whatever kind of ingredient that you want that will complement an egg bite, and you can cook for your whole family without getting icky green stuff into the egg bites for the family that won't eat icky green stuff. They do eat some green stuff. So what I've done is I've sauteed a little bit of spinach and mushroom. These will be mine. And I'm going to put them into the blue mold. That way I know blue is my favorite color. And I will know those are my egg bites. So you'll see that I'm just scooping them right on top of the bacon. Now that means that these, just principles of volume, that these are going to have less of the egg base in it. But they are, if I do say so myself, going to be much more delicious. All right, now it is time to pour the base in. All right, y'all, this is probably going to be messy, and that's okay. We can clean it up, right? So fortunately, the top of our blender has a nice little spout for this. I usually pull it up just a little bit to help myself. So when you pour it in, you don't want it to go right up to the top because these are obviously going to expand since they're eggs. So you want to get it just before they get to the top and give it a little bit of room to grow. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one because I want to make sure that we have the right amount of base for the amount of bites that I'm trying to make. So you can see that this one, some of that bacon did float up to the top. Since the ones I'm making for myself had some sauteed spinach and some sauteed mushrooms in it, those are a little bit denser than the bacon. But you'll see here that there is some spinach up there at the top. All right, it's looking like I got just about the right amount. And then I can pour a little bit more into here. I have just a little bit left over. That's okay. It's not quite enough to, pop it into a frying pan and cook it up. So now we have to load it into the Instant Pot. And this can get a little tricky because we only have so much real estate inside the pot. And that is why we are going to use the trivet. All right, the reason we're using the trivet, there's two different reasons. First of all, we don't want to put these silicone molds directly into the water that's already in the pot. Second of all, you would see it'd be pretty tricky to get those down there without spilling it. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to place the mold on the trivet, and then we're going to lower it into the pot. And because I've done this before, I know that we have exactly the amount of room we need to lower the second one in. So I'm going to put a piece of parchment paper on. Now, what is this parchment paper doing? It is preventing all of that water that's building up and all that pressure. You know, we get a lot of water condensation on the inside. It's keeping it from dripping down and adding just straight up water onto our egg bites. So fortunately, we sprayed it with a little bit of olive oil, so that's adhering to the parchment paper and helping it stay down. So then we're going to lower the second one in there and use our second piece of parchment paper and tuck it down on the sides. There, that's perfect. And now we're ready to close the lid. You want to make sure that the valve at the top is set to the sealing position. And we're going to cook these on low pressure. I think this is the first time we've used low pressure so far. We're going to cook them low pressure for 10 minutes. So you do pressure cook, and right here is pressure level. So that's normal, and it's low pressure. That's where we want it. And then we want the temperature, or we want the time to be 10 minutes. So it's set to 10 minutes. So in just a second, this is going to beep, and that means it is going to start building to pressure. It's probably going to take about 10 minutes for this to come to pressure, so our total cook time is going to be about 20 minutes. All right, so it took the Instant Pot about 8 or 9 minutes to come up to pressure, and then once it came up to pressure, the display turned to 10 and it started counting down. So it cooked for 10 minutes. And now you'll see this L. We just heard a series of loud beeps, and you'll see this L appear. That stands for elapsed time. And we're going to let these naturally release for 5 minutes. That means that the pressure is slowly releasing from the top of the pot. And while it's doing that, it is still cooking a little bit on the inside. All right, it is naturally released for 5 minutes. Now we're going to help along the release of the pressure by turning the valve at the top from the sealing position to the venting position. And there still could be some pressure in there, so make sure you're a little careful. Done. All right, float valve is popped down, so that means it's safe to open the pot. So there will be a little steam. Make sure that you open it away from yourself. All right, so I can see, that was hot, I can see that some of our egg whites got a little out of control, and that's okay. So I'm going to take this off. I have these little mitts because sometimes it's hard to get in there with just regular pot holders, and obviously these are very, very hot. So these little mitts, they're actually branded Instant Pot. They do help get into tight spaces. So we're going to carefully remove the silicone molds. Go, just kind of get in there. All right, the other one should be easier because we'll have the trivet to help us. So you see that guy right there, I got a little out of control. See that guy? That guy right there. He had his own idea of what he wanted to look like. So I'm still going to use these little grippers to take the parchment paper off, and it's got condensation on it. And you don't want that condensation to go in there and get on top of our beautiful egg bites. Now, because these are so hot, we're going to let them sit for just a few minutes before we attempt to pop them out of the molds. This also helps them keep their shape a little bit too. So just a little bit more waiting. While we're waiting for these to cool down a little bit, let's look at the difference in the two of these. So let's get these where you can see it. All right, so you can see that mine, the one that has spinach and mushrooms in it, because they had that extra stuff to absorb some of the moisture, they look a little drier, just a little bit, still very tasty. And the cups are not quite as full, again, because a lot of the moisture went back into the spinach and into the mushrooms. All right, so we've let these cool off just a little bit. Now, in theory, we should be able to just turn these over and they fall out. Now, as we know with cooking, things don't always go to plan. So I do have a little silicone spatula to help these come out a little bit. So I'm just going to loosen them up a little bit. I really don't think we'll have any problem with these coming out. I'm just going to kind of stick it down in there. Yeah, I think these are going to be just fine. So we're going to plop them over. There you go. Look at those beautiful egg bites. You can see up at the top, they have this beautiful bacon. Oh boy. All right, let's open up our spinach and mushroom ones as well. All right, these spinach mushroom ones look like they might not cooperate quite as well as our bacon ones did. There's one left in there. So these molds, you should just be able to give it a pop. And out they come. So when you have them turned this way, they're still beautiful. This way, they get a little bit more interesting looking. All right, let's open these up and see what they look like on the inside. They should be nice and fluffy. All right, let's start with the plain one with bacon. There we go. Oh, that looks really good. Now let's open up our spinach and mushroom. So it does look like, you know, most of our spinach and mushroom, the pressure pushed it up to the top of the mold. But again, this is how I always make them, and they're delicious. That's why I keep making them. So if you're worried about how they look, then maybe you just want to stick with the bacon. Let's see how they taste. I'm going to try mine. Oh, it's just so perfect. Look how delicious that is. It's so good. So if you want your egg bites to be a little bit fluffier, you can use cottage cheese. We are trying to, we wanted a breakfast that was super low carb, which is why we stuck with this recipe. You can also use cream instead of milk. So you can use cottage cheese instead of milk, or you can use cream. So this is a recipe I make often for meal prep. I'll make this once at the beginning of the week, and they'll last for 5 days. A serving size can be 2 or 3. Again, it's super low carb. You keep them in the refrigerator, and when you're ready to eat, just take them out and heat them for about 30 minutes, 30 seconds. Do not heat them for 30 minutes. 30 seconds is all you need. Oh boy, I can't wait to eat the rest of this. Thank you so much for joining me again. I do hope you're taking advantage of all of the safe ways that you can still access the library, including our curbside service. And of course, you still have access to all of our digital material, including amazing cookbooks. Again, thank you for joining me. Stay safe, wash your hands, and we hope to see you real soon.